A lot of things will need to happen for the AL Central champs to go deep in the postseason. What do you say we draft them?
You're listening to the Selby is Godcast with Zach Meisel and T.J. Zupi.
Fly ball, deep right field. Back is Spencer at the one and couldn't get the wall.
Subscribe to Selby is Godcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Unbelievable.
Zach, you haven't partied this much since you called Columbus home.
It's a young roster for the most part, but I talk it like the coaching staff, some of those veterans like Cobb and Boyd, and I feel for them, right? 2 all-out bashes in a span of 3 days. Body doesn't recover like it once did.
Yeah. It's harder for us old guys to go through that. Can't quite get her done and bounce back the same way the body used to. We'll get to that. But I think the most important thing, we want to know, how do the Guardians keep partying? How do we make sure that the last 2 that they've had, clinching a playoff spot, clinching the American League Central, how do we ensure that that's not the last of it? Now, they could have another blowout coming up this week if they clinch a first-round bye because they don't get to party after a wild card round. So I want to make up for that as well. So they could have a third party if they really wanted to. I'm not sure about that.
They also have the Ohio Cup.
That's true.
I mean, you could be talking about 4 parties in the span of a week.
I don't know if the body could handle it. But I do want to focus today looking ahead to the postseason and trying to establish what needs to happen for the Guardians to have a deep playoff run. I think some of these are pretty obvious. And as I was going through compiling a list, I was realizing, okay, a lot of this really is obvious. But there are some little details about it that I didn't quite realize, especially in regard to the bullpen and some of the other supporting cast. And the most important thing is maybe ranking them on order of importance or what you would put the most emphasis on. But we don't want to sit here today, Zach, and just list them back and forth. We have to have some sort of competition to see who is going to have the better outlook on the postseason. And maybe at the end of it, we can look back and say which of these things happened and who was most right, or didn't happen and who was most wrong.
I can't tell if you're just a glutton for punishment because I beat you in the war draft year after year after year, and you're that boxer who's got 2 black eyes, blood coming out of every orifice. And
I'll keep coming back, damn it.
Yeah. Give me some more. Let's go. That's fine.
Another bigger.
We can draft anything you want. I've told you we can do a draft of all of our drafts if you would like to at some point. But yeah, it's weird. I've been talking to some people, either colleagues or just trying to figure out like what, because we've said, I mean, this team, nothing would surprise us, right? They could get knocked out in the division series. They could make a run to the World Series and look formidable in the World Series. I have no idea. But I do think that if you examine their wins, like those are the types of wins any team achieves in the playoffs. They're kind of built more for October than they are for the regular season. So I think what we're about to lay out is, that's the formula for winning, but I think there are realistic things here. We're not saying like, well, if this guy who had a 65 WRC plus goes nuclear, they can make a deep run. Unless that's what you have up your sleeve. I don't know.
Perhaps it could be late round surprises. That's what we're here for, the surprises. But how do we kick off every draft? We do it by one of the favorites, I believe, of our listeners, of the things that we do. Forget the draft. It's who is going to win rock, paper, scissors. We've done this enough. We don't have to spend 5 minutes debating this, right? You know the rules. We know how this goes.
You know how to play.
All right.
So this determines the first pick, or does it determine the right to choose whether you want to go first or second. Like in the NFL, everybody defers now.
Sure. Yeah, let's do that. You get to choose.
Okay.
You get to choose.
Is it all? Are we alternating picks? Is it a snake
do we want to
draft?
spice it up? Do we want to spice it up and say the person that gets the second pick also gets the third pick, and then we alternate from there?
Sure.
Perhaps we should talk about these rules before we actually get on the show. You know what this reminds me of? On Facebook,
an amateur
those videos,
like high school podcast between
that too.
two
That
buddies.
too. But I
just
mean, that's
killing
every
time.
show. Yeah, that's every year. On Facebook, I get these videos that show someone making a cake, and they're building up to like at the end they're supposed to pull off the top, and the icing is supposed to come down over the cake, and it's supposed to be a cool thing to watch. But they just keep going, okay, well, let's do it. We got to make sure. And they just delay it. And before you know it, you've watched 20 minutes of this video.
Is it actually cake, though? Have you seen those videos where it's like someone's watching TV, but then they bite into the TV because it's actually a cake?
Is it real or
I don't
cake?
want to say that there were minutes upon minutes of those videos consumed by Cleveland beat writers during the series in St. Louis, but I'd be lying.
Well, it's tough when you can't really see the field from the St. Louis press box. I told you that thing is up really high. Anyway,
St. Louis Arch.
there you go. Speaking of being high, let's get to this rock, paper, scissors game. On shoot.
Wait, so we go rock, paper, scissors, shoot, or do you go rock,
Yes.
paper, scissors, 1,
Yes.
2, 3, shoot?
No, nobody has ever done that in the history of this game. Rock, paper, scissors, and then on shoot.
All right, now you got to
Here we
make sure
go.
there's no like lag in the Wi-Fi so that you're getting.
We've covered this.
An
It's fine.
advantage.
We're good. We're good.
Hold on, let me think
All right.
about. I didn't prep. I forgot we would play this, so I didn't prep my strategy here.
I really hate you.
So you
right
can go
now. I
rock,
hate you.
paper, or scissors. And if
That's
we tie,
how the game
we
is
do
played.
it again.
That's generally the rules. Yes, it's not. No one has argued these rules ever. I don't think. This
Do
is
we know
not
how many
Uno where you're
rounds we want to
creating
go
rules.
in this draft?
I believe we're going to each have 5. So we're going to have 10 different points we believe needs to happen for the Guardians to have a longer postseason run than we spent actually setting the rules for this game. Rock,
do we
paper,
still have
scissors.
time for 10 rounds even after this is dragging?
I have no idea. So let's get to it.
All
Here
right.
we go. Rock,
Rock,
paper, scissors.
shoot.
shoot.
Oh, okay. Well, we both went scissors.
Okay.
I felt like you went a little slow there. Like you gotta come on. You gotta keep the rhythm so that there's no cheating here. Ready?
Rock,
Rock,
paper, scissors.
shoot.
shoot.
Paper,
Ah.
paper. Huh.
Two ties. All right, here we go.
Hold on. Now this is a little stressful.
No, it's
You
not.
went
Let's
scissors, then you went paper. So you thought I was gonna go scissors again. No.
go. Or did I?
You thought I was gonna
Here we
go rock.
Rock, paper,
I
scissors.
was
If you
gonna
don't
go
throw
rock.
anything, you lose.
What?
Rock, paper,
Rock, paper,
scissors,
shoot.
shoot.
All right. you won.
There's the rock beats the scissors. I have secured. I'm going to take the top pick. I'm going to take the
Okay.
top pick. You can
You're
have
not gonna
the
defer.
next 2. Not going to defer to the second half of the draft.
That was fun.
can
That
have
was
the
quick.
next
It
2
only
after
took a
this.
few minutes.
Said nobody. If you're still here, here we go. First pick in the draft. I think I'll go with the guy that is just the perennial MVP. I'm not going to overthink this. Jose Ramirez has got to be on one of those heaters. You know, we see when he is kind of where he's at here a little bit recently, but I think even more so, he can't be ultra ice cold and maybe you get 1 home run in a series. I would love to see him catch fire and be one of those game-changing Jose runs for an actual postseason. That would be fun to watch. And it really helps to transform this offense, sure, but I think everyone settles in a lot more easily. And it also potentially creates more scoring opportunities if teams have to pitch around Jose. Now, Naylor's coming up with guys on base, and I really believe this offense is better off when there's just a little bit of traffic instead of, well, I don't want to ruin some late draft picks that I have coming up. So I think first thing is first, Jose has got to be like a superstar for the majority of the playoffs, for as long as they are alive.
He was really good 2 years ago. Obviously, the game-winning home run in the first playoff game, and then he was really good in that Yankees series. It was 8 for 20 .400 average. He seems like he's showing signs of doing that, right? He had back-to-back multi-hit games in St. Louis, a couple of home runs, sneaking up on 40-40. I don't know that he's going to get there. He wants it. He admitted he wants it. When he got his 40th steal on, was it Friday? We asked him how it felt, and he said, well, it'll feel better when I get the 40th home run to go with it. And then I asked him,
did you notice that he was trying to steal second, but he realized he was not going to get credit for it because someone got thrown out on the beginning part of a double steal. And so he immediately ripped third because he wanted that 40th base. And he wanted it. There was no one was going to deny that.
So I asked him if he could ever do 50-50 like Ohtani. And he said he doesn't have the energy. And then the translator, Augie Rivero, kind of clarified later on that what he means by that is like Ohtani is a massive dude. And so he can just hit tanks all day. And for Ramirez, it takes a lot of effort to hit one over the fence 40 times, let alone 50. So I don't think that's in his future, but you can tell. And he hasn't been shy about it. Remember a few years back, he was going for, I think, just 30-30. And he was like, he knew where he was at in stealing bases at the end and just trying to accumulate that, which, look, as long as it's not detrimental to your habits or the team success, go for it. And he's in position now where, the team clinched everything. If he wants to swing for the fences and he doesn't think it's going to screw up his stance, fine. I also don't think he's the type that just swings for the fences. His home runs are pulled fly balls. So that's what he's trying to do anyway.
I'm interested to hear what you think is next. What is next most important for this Guards team to go deep into the postseason?
Yeah, it's tough because we could just focus on individuals or we could focus on like themes, units. So I'm going to I get 2 picks here, right?
Yeah, go 2 and 3.
I'll go Steven Kwan, who will, this is interesting. He's going to come back from the injured list Tuesday or Wednesday. It'll either be like Tuesday afternoon or Tuesday post game. And he's feeling good. So part of the equation is making sure, as long as he went through basically a full day of pregame stuff Saturday, pretty full day Sunday, Monday afternoon, he's going to come in, get checked out, go through some testing. And then they would love to activate him Tuesday or after the game Tuesday, but that costs somebody a roster spot. So one, who is that? Because that's going to be really interesting. I think the candidates would probably be Straw, Martinez, Brennan, and Noel, right? Anybody tickle your fancy there?
Well, I already told you about who I think is making the postseason roster, and I now feel better about that take having watched this series and how the man was used. I don't think Miles Straw is going anywhere right now. Maybe it's Martinez just because he's just been filling the Kwan role.
Isn't that weird? Call a guy up, hit him leadoff every day, and then send him back.
Yeah, it is. I mean, do they feel better about Martinez being the backup shortstop instead of Schneemann? Do they think either one of those guys does something else that the other can't, that therefore that would be the better choice?
I don't know. They haven't really played Martinez at short. So is that a desperate need for so here's the other part of the equation. The 10-day rule still applies here. So assuming they land a first round bye, that won't really matter. They can activate Kwan Tuesday or Wednesday morning, whatever it is. I guess technically Tuesday night. And and then 10 days can pass, and that player that they send down could still be part of the playoff roster. That won't be the case if Alex Cobb makes it back in time, because that would be later in the week. And the pitcher, I think it's 15 days. So wouldn't be able to do that. Whoever they cut for Alex Cobb wouldn't be able to be on the playoff roster. So that's also part of why I think they can't wait until Wednesday technically to make the move. They'd have to do it like Tuesday, pregame or postgame. This was all explained to me. It's confusing, but just something to think about depending on who they cut ties with. But yeah, I don't know. They haven't played Martinez at shortstop yet at all. So guessing he won't be, they don't consider him as like the backup shortstop if they were to dump Schneemann. But anyway,
No.
This is about Stephen Kwan, who...
And it is important, by the way. You would say, well, what do they need a backup shortstop for in a short playoff series? True, they're not talking about starting anybody in that spot, but what happens if you pinch hit Rocchio?
Right.
You want to have somebody that you can plug in at shortstop, even for an inning, that you trust there. That's why that is important.
Yeah, though I would also argue, are you pinch hitting for Rocchio if half of your bench is Straw and Hedges?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have limited opportunities to pinch hit if that's the route you go. There's a lot of moving parts still. I don't know. Anyway, Kwan, they need him healthy. They need him hitting, him in the leadoff spot, doing anything remotely close to what he did for the first 3 months of the season is an enormous bonus for this lineup heading into the postseason. You said they need Jose Ramirez to get on one of his runs. Well, if he gets on one of those runs and Kwan is on base most of the time when he's on one of those runs, that's how this offense goes from a little below average, middle of the pack, to where they were the first couple months of the season when they were top 5 in scoring for the first 2 months. I don't know that that's sustainable, but you only need it to last for a few weeks, and a healthy Kwan is critical to that happening.
I agree. I had him high on this list, too. Just getting him back, and it doesn't even have to be the Kwan he was when he was flirting with 400. The Kwan that he's been previously over the past couple of years. You get on base 35% of the time or better. You just go on a run like that. Hit 280, and in the rare cases where somebody at the bottom of the lineup has gotten on base, make the other team pay for that, in addition to setting it up for everybody else that you can't wait to get to the plate in that middle of the order. So yeah, I agree with you. It was a pretty easy one.
So tell me if this is allowable here. Can I lump Tanner Bybee and Gavin Williams together?
You can do it however you want.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, in like a young guys rising to the occasion in their first opportunity on the grand stage sort of theme. And I'm going to assume here that Gavin Williams is in the playoff rotation. You know, if you look at his starts, he's made 16 of them. And I'm going to classify them as in very simple terms. I'm going to go one by one. Ready? Bad, really good, good, bad, fine, really good, bad, really good, bad, bad, good, really good, really bad, not great, fine, pretty good. That's a lot of...
Are you
ends of the
recapping my
spectrum?
dates in college or what? What was that?
How many times did I say just whatever, okay, mediocre?
Yeah.
He's had 2 decent ones in a row. That was a good start in St. Louis. The start against the Twins was fine last week. 2 clunkers before that. The best start maybe of his career before that. It's hard to figure it out, and I think he is in that same frustrated boat. But I also wonder what happens when you just put a guy out there in a critical game in front of a home crowd, feed off the energy, and just see what they can do. They're both built like... with Tanner Bybee, you see it. The guy doesn't shy away from his emotions, Anytime Stephen Vogt comes and takes the baseball from him, he looks like someone just told him he was out for the season. Like, he's so pissed every time. But you want that. You want that competitiveness. And especially when it's not a hindrance. And with Gavin, it's the stuff is there. And I don't know. I'm not going to predict what he's going to do because I have no idea. That's a fool's errand. But I think for this team, if those guys rise to the occasion, and obviously I think you trust Pybee more at this point, but those are two horses you would want to lean on. Like, as good as Boyd has been, as consistent as Lively has been, we'll keep repeating this point where, like, Williams' stuff is so good that when he's on, like that start in Kansas City a few weeks back, you have no qualms about letting him face guys a third, a fourth time if you have to. Obviously, if you have the bullpen they have, go to the bullpen. But if you need innings from someone and he's on, like, that's the guy you want out there.
I find it interesting going through some of the stuff and location numbers of Williams start by start. You can do that now at Fangraphs, which is really cool. You just go through and see how it fluctuates every time he goes out. And what I find interesting about Gavin Williams is that you can almost see what his plan is in each start. So, for instance, in this St. Louis start, his stuff numbers were bad. Some of the worst they've been all season long. His location was okay, but his fastball was not good at all in terms of stuff. But he got results. So to me, when I see a guy where the stuff is down, but the location was better than his previous start, where his stuff was really good against Minnesota, he had one of closer to his upper tier stuff, just pure stuff outings against Minnesota, and his location was worse. And you can do this in a lot of different starts. The start before that against Tampa Bay, the stuff was, the location was great. The start before that against the Dodgers, the stuff was actually great. The location was putrid. And you can go through some of his recent starts, and you can almost see a guy that almost chooses, today I want to be more accurate with where I'm putting the ball, and I don't necessarily count or care as much about how good the stuff is. And that worked against St. Louis. And then there are some starts where I'm just going to let it eat, and it's just going to go where it goes. And he's had mixed results with that. Some, like the Dodgers start, it was great stuff, but he couldn't place it anywhere, and he was just knocked out before he could even breathe in that outing. And so I think we're seeing a young pitcher that, when they come up, they can let the stuff eat. Guys make adjustments or whatever, and then you kind of have to learn how to marry, how do I put the ball where I want, but I also get good stuff. And right now he's almost picking and choosing what he has to do to have success.
It is targeted. It is intentional. And he's tinkering. He's trying to figure out how to be the best version of himself. And I think when you know that you're on borrowed time here, like it would be different if it was June, which is, he's made 16 starts. He'd normally be about halfway through the season and still have a second half left to, like, take the evidence he's gained and figure out what to do with it all, right? You don't have that. And I do wonder, too, in the playoffs. I mean, I know I just said if he's going well, like, you don't worry about him facing guys because the stuff is just so good. You also have the opportunity to say, look, man, get through 4 innings and we're fine. So you don't need to hold anything back. You don't need to try to, be too perfect. Just attack. That mentality that we've talked about so much for pitchers who are just kind of going through it. I wonder if that could help him too. Once he gets the location, once the command is good, the delivery feels repeatable. And then it's like, okay, we'll just do that and just don't try to, like, get guys, hey, chase this. I'm going to throw this on the edge. Let's see if he can make just go blow it by people. Throw strikes and see what happens, because there's just no time to waste. There's, if we got to pull you after 4 innings, that's okay. As long as those 4 innings, you're not walking guys and wasting everyone's time.
I think you would lower his expectations and put less on him, even if that's not necessarily true. You know, Vogt and Carl have a conversation where we're hoping to get him through 5 1/3, 5 2/3. There's a certain part in the lineup into the 5th inning, but you tell him, hey, if you get through 4, you have done exactly what we want. You don't make him feel like I got to go out and toss 7 immaculate innings, and if I don't do that, I've let the club down. And I think, Stephen Vogt has helped pitchers, has guided them through outings his entire career. So I think he knows how to handle that better than most. Let's stick with the pitching. I struggled with how to phrase this because initially I said the bullpen must pitch at least 45% of the innings in the playoffs. That's at least 45% of the innings. But then I thought about it. That's not necessarily a good thing, because if the starter is getting hold on. If the starter is getting knocked around in the first inning, they're covering a lot of those innings, but something bad has happened, and this doesn't necessarily achieve what I want. So the way that I phrase it is they have to pitch at least 45%, but less than 75%. Does that make sense? You want to find that equilibrium where you're using them strategically as you want to, because the starters have given you enough. What I don't want to happen is they've got to cover 90% of the innings because the starters keep giving up 3 runs before anyone even settles into their seats, which is not really ever a problem in the postseason unless it's like, the Atlanta Braves, the LA Dodgers or something like that. In Cleveland, everybody is to their seats. You want to make sure that bullpen is not occupying too many innings because you're already taking punches to the gut before you can even settle in.
This is like some weird Price is Right game or spinning the wheel when you...
That's why you should love it. Yeah.
You spin the first time and someone else is standing over there with 95 cents and you got to get between 35 and 50 or whatever. Anyway.
Yeah, because then Zach will bid 1 inning and win, and that's not good. That's not what I'm looking for.
Yeah, you want to... That's what's going to be interesting. They've done such a good job with bullpen deployment and pulling guys. I mean, there have been a handful of times when it's like, you might have left that pitcher in, like Cobb in Minnesota. You might have left that pitcher in a batter too long. But for the most part, they've done an awesome job with that. And, Carl Willis had a great line the other night where he said, it's been a rough year for the rotation. They've had to work hard to piece it together, and they've had a lot of guys up and down, and because of that, they leaned on the bullpen a lot. And he said, Stephen Vogt comes out and says that's all for today to the starting pitcher. The starting pitcher naturally is going to be frustrated. They want to stay in the game as long as possible. And he said, but then you look over your shoulder and you see Cade Smith jogging in, and you're like, all right, that's fine. I'll go back to the dugout. So it'll be interesting to see them pull the right levers in October. And we talked about, I don't know that there's, especially Cade Smith, because he is the stopper. He's a guy who can go multiple innings. Is there an inning number where you'd be stunned if you saw Cade Smith?
Oh, never.
Like the first.
Yeah. If the bases are loaded and the starter has given up 2 runs and he's thrown a lot of pitches and there's still 1 out or something. No, what? Yeah, go to Cade Smith, because you don't give up a 6 spot.
Should
in a
Cade
game like
Smith
this.
have pitched against Giancarlo Stanton in Game 5 2 years ago?
He should, absolutely.
But isn't that the right situation? And that's you're right. I won't be shocked by anything. Go to him, let him get out of that, pitch the second inning, and then turn to whoever for the third and fourth, maybe a little lower leverage, and then back to Herron, and then, you got to piece it together.
You can get somebody out there to give you length in the middle innings if necessary, or if things have gotten out of hand, but the game might be hanging in the balance right there initially. You don't want to be down by that many runs. What you said about Carl is also something similar to what Lively said after one of his recent starts. I know you were in there for it. Smith comes in and strikes him out on 3 pitches, and Lively said, I could have done that. And then you look up at the speedometer here. And you're going, well, maybe not at 97 miles per hour. So I kind of get it.
So with the next pick, I'm going to go isolated power. And this is something they did not have 2 years ago. And I think it cost them, especially against New York, where can they get a random home run from Bo Naylor? Can they get a random home run from Jhonkensy Noel? Can they get a random home run from David Fry? Not your Jose Ramirez and Josh Naylor, the usual suspects, but can you get a random home run? Because you need everybody in the lineup to offer something. And it's much more difficult to string together singles to hope that that bloop falls in when you're facing, I don't know, Ronel Blanco, who trying to think who they might face in the first round, the Astros, Framber Valdez. So, we know Bo Naylor has power, Noel has power, Fry has power. I don't necessarily want to put Lane Thomas in this group because I think he offers some different things, but those guys who, they're not going to be the ones who necessarily play guards ball. Can you get some random home runs? We talked last week what that lineup looked like 2 years ago, and I think we agreed the lineup right now seems more formidable because you have even your, maybe not so much Rocchio, although he's been contributing more over the last month, but even the guys who you're like, I don't really know what they're going to supply, but they could supply power. Like Bo Naylor's had a miserable year offensively. He does have 13 home runs. Can he run into one in the playoffs? We saw Roberto Perez in 2016 play that role perfectly with some power at the perfect times. I think that's a big difference. I think that's the difference between a lineup that was too feeble 2 years ago and a lineup that you hope is more capable in 2024.
This one does feel like cheating a little bit because this almost crosses off two of my things on this list. So I'm not sure which of these I would cross off. I'm going to cross off one and I'm going to keep the other. Somehow I'm going to leave this up to you. Which one do I get credit for? Because I had bottom of the lineup needs to be a threat. Not that they always have to come through, but they've got to be a threat. Can't just have nothing from the bottom. And then I said one of the supporting cast has to be hot. One of them at some point in time, I don't care if they take turns,
keep that one.
But somebody in that supporting cast, whether it's Lane Thomas, whether it, outside of the main guys, really the top three, I would say, between Naylor, Kwan, and Ramirez, somebody has to take a turn or at least be hot for a series in addition to the main guys that you're counting on. So I'll keep that one. Okay, I'll get rid of bottom of the line. I'll say that one was what you said. And one of the supporting cast, you left out Lane Thomas because he does bring some of those other elements that you were.
There's someone else I left out as well.
Saying that those other guys don't bring to the table. Lane Thomas, a well-timed home run, but he can also change the game by getting on and stealing a base. But somebody has to contribute outside of the main guys that we're always focused on. David Fry, it would be a great time for him to come through with a couple of key base hits in a pinch hit situation, or if they're facing a lefty. Any of those other players, guys that are hitting in that 5 spot, or Manzardo, catching fire out of the 2-hole against righties, that would just help to lift this offense.
Is this your draft pick, or are you just listing every single player in the lineup?
Whoa, coming from the guy that just did that in his previous pick, I find that hilarious. You're next up.
I mean, you just took a lot of things here. I'm gonna go. I'll go narrow focus then. Okay. I'm going to pick two of those guys. I'm going to go Manzardo and Fry as the lethal DH platoon combination. Especially because I have a feeling Manzardo's going to hit second in the lineup against righties moving forward. And I assume Lane Thomas will move up to second against lefties. Although maybe Fry hits second, because you're just going to pinch hit for him with Manzardo later on. I don't know. But I think that duo has a lot of potential. Manzardo's been great lately. You can limit Fry to lefties. And we keep coming back to this, and I hope it doesn't sound like we're pumping up this offense to sound like the 95 offense, but it is so much more appealing when it's, the Manzardo-Fry combination. If that's second in your lineup and you got a healthy Kwan first, Ramirez, then Naylor, and then Lane Thomas with what he's done over the last month, at last, that looks like a playoff caliber first 56% of the lineup. So I think those guys are important. Can't you just envision Kyle Manzardo hitting one out to the short porch in right field at Yankee Stadium in October?
Yes, because I want to envision it, but also because it would be fun, and maybe some of those Wade Boggs comparisons would come full circle. The guy's hitting for the Yankees in October. Against the Yankees in October. Do I want to go back pitching? Do I want to? Let's stick with a similar theme here. You mentioned the isolated power, not as a team, but just from individual guys. I'm gonna come back the other end of this, swing the pendulum the other way. You can't fall into a wait for homers mentality that I think becomes easy to do in the postseason. And you need power. I'm not saying don't hit for power. The reason why this offense can be more formidable is because they are capable of hitting that random home run to change a game in the postseason. You need that. And power really separates in the postseason. I really feel like it's not predictable, but usually the teams that can hit some home runs are going to have some more success against some of that better pitching. But I also feel like this lineup is still at its best when they can do some of what they did in the St. Louis series. Even the Straw getting on and stealing a base and then coming home via a sac bunt. Now, I'm not saying I want everybody to go up there and sac bunt, but the right guy in the right situation, that totally makes sense. And I want to see this team still cause some chaos. Yes, hit the home runs. Those are fantastic because you can't rely on chaos to be your only method of attack. But I also want this team, I feel like they're a different club when they sort of get rolling by causing that chaos. I don't know if it's putting more pressure on the other club and that forces them into make some mistakes, but this club is at its best when they can have a 2-run ground out, or in the case of Lane Thomas, 2-run single on the infield to create offense that way. Don't lose that element. Don't just sit back and say, well, another inning of another tough pitcher and hope we get it over the fence. I want to see this team still be a complete offense when it's at its best.
That was going to be my next one. They're up there in stolen bases. They're also up there in being caught stealing bases. But the way Miles Straw manufactured that run, Austin Hedges with the squeeze bunt. We've seen Rocchio do that a bunch as well. There are ways to scratch across some offense with the bottom of this lineup, but they just need to be the aggressors. I'm with you. Like when it looks like they're playing fast and confident, that's when they're at their best. Of course, just takes really good pitching to neutralize that, and you see that a lot in the playoffs too. All right. My last pick. I feel like we haven't talked enough pitching.
Yeah, it's still on the list.
There's a few ways you can go about this. I'm just going to say, this might be a cheap way of doing this. I'm just going to say that they picked the right guys to round out the pitching staff.
Oh, of course.
That goes for the rotation and the bullpen. There are questions about Cobb. He didn't have a setback, but he didn't throw Thursday when he was supposed to, I think. And then he did wind up throwing Friday and Saturday. Saturday felt really good. Again, this is just day-to-day evaluating. They have no idea what he's going to wind up doing. So can you trust that? You're not going to know. The other wild card here is you're more than likely going to have Monday off, Tuesday off, Wednesday off, Thursday off, Friday off. Then you'd play Saturday, and I think Sunday's an off day. So you have to manage that properly. Where can Cobb go? Where can he pitch? How can you know you can trust him? Keeping the other guys sharp. Everyone will be well rested, but then who makes sense in the bullpen? Do you need guys who can chew up multiple innings like Morgan and Navila? Has Sabrowski shown you enough that he should make the roster? Has Nick Sandlin shown you too much that he shouldn't make the roster? Joey Cantillo, where does he fit in all of this? Has Andrew Walters done enough?
Yeah.
There are a lot
how
of
much
questions
does that adjust based on opponent too? Opponent or shorter series, maybe a longer series. You look at it differently than you would a 5-game series.
And the people who don't round out your rotation, first of all, do you want 3 starters or do you want 4? I think you can go, I haven't done the math yet, but I think you can maybe get away with 3 because of the extra off day. I don't know. But do the starters who don't make the rotation, do you want them in the bullpen? Does Ben Lively make sense as a multi-inning guy? Would you rather have him start? Does Boyd, where does he fit? Gavin Williams? I mean, there's going to be a lot of decisions here. And how do you piece together the puzzle so that it makes the most sense? Gives you the best chance to win. I think those decisions will be important.
No doubt. Which brings us to the final pick in this draft. And I think, there are still elements here where we could say honorable mentions. You could go through the entire lineup and make a case why that guy's important to what you're trying to do. We haven't said that the rookie relievers need to just continue to be dominant. Manuel Clase needs to pitch like the best closer on the planet. All those things need to continue. So if any of that falters, if Clase just has a rare blown save and you lose the game, it can happen in the postseason, but you also, if you're trying to go deep into the postseason, you got to limit how often something like that happens, or maybe never happens. So all that is important. I'll come back to a point I made on our Patreon show. And by the way, come join us at Patreon, patreon.com/SelbyIsGodcast. We've got some more fun coming up in the postseason. We're going to be expanding some of the shows we do there. We've got some plans for some other extras. So we're going to have some fun coming up in the next several months and into the offseason, I promise. My prediction there was that Miles Straw was going to make the postseason roster, and then seeing not only how Vogt used Miles Straw in St. Louis, but I think it becomes even more realistic when the way they wanted to use him actually was proven to be something that can create some offense for this team. We saw that Straw was more willing to steal a base when he wasn't getting caught stealing. And it looked a little bit more successful than, we said, where were the stolen bases the last couple of years? This is a guy that was supposed to be creating runs with his legs. And also defensively, we haven't really witnessed a lot of really smooth center field this year, but you saw that in glimpses when Straw would go chase one down in the gap. And it's just like a no-nothing, whatever. And we kind of grew accustomed to that when he wasn't providing anything offensively, but defensively, especially in that Gold Glove year, he was creating a difference in the outfield. So I think if I had to make a guess today, I think Straw is going to be on the postseason roster, utilized in that role. Again, that's just my prediction. We'll see. But I'll say my final pick has to be no high-leverage plate appearances for Miles Straw or Austin Hedges. You cannot have either one of those guys taking a meaningful at-bat in the playoffs. You want to keep them on the roll. Hedges is going to be around because he's your backup catcher, and if you're going to pinch hit for Bo Naylor, Hedges has to come in. David Fry can't do it. But if you're keeping Straw as well, and you envision him being this guy that can pinch run and save the game defensively for you, you cannot be put into a position where the tying run is at second base and here comes Miles Straw with 2 outs. It's just, it can't happen.
Isn't that
so
tough
take
to
that off
do,
the
though?
board.
Because here's the thing. They currently have, they have 14 position players. Like, who is Straw taking the place of? Martinez?
Yeah.
It's just harder to mix and match. And then once you got to put Straw in the game at the perfect time where that at-bat's not going to come up. I don't know. I think we all know how this ends. He's at the plate.
And I'm not telling you what
Season on
I
the
would do.
line.
I'm telling you what my prediction is. And knowing that, I'm saying it's important that neither one of those guys gets a playoff plate appearance that means anything. If you're well ahead, I don't care if they come up and hit with a 3-run lead in the 8th inning. Okay, I can live with that, but you don't want them taking a meaningful postseason at bat ever. And so straws on the team. What that would leave you with 2 pinch hitters that would be meaningful, right? Fry would be one.
And he's
And
a
then-
DH, so it's also like not a lot of flexibility.
So Fry or Brennan,
Yeah.
depending on which side. And then if Noel's on the bench, then he becomes that guy. But you would have 2 guys on the bench. It's my fear. My fear is that that's what's going to happen.
I understand the benefits of it. I just don't. I don't know. You know, it would help if they trusted Manzardo against some lefties. That would help because then you don't have to just deploy Fry for him. But you know, it's tough. Like if you have straw pinch run for someone in the 7th inning, you know, maybe it works out and you get a key run you need, but like he's going to bat at some point. And if he's going to bat in the top of the 9th, what are the odds that that's high leverage? Pretty good. You just have to use him perfectly and have things go perfectly to avoid what you're dreading.
I think
It
in
is literally,
hypotheticals,
like,
it all sounds great.
We're joking about the Michael Martinez comparison, but that is literally what happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're putting him in for Coco
Or to
Crisp,
a-
praying he's not going to hit.
Yeah, and if that's the case, then you think, what are the odds that the ball is hit to left field, that it's in a position where Martinez could actually make a difference on a sacrifice fly? And then also, what are the odds that it comes back to bite me in the butt? I didn't like that at the time. Really don't like it now, seeing how it played out. I think going into the postseason, you think in hypotheticals a lot. Like, Trevor Bauer coming out of the bullpen, he'll be a weapon coming out of the bullpen, hypothetically, if we can use it the exact way that we want to. But sometimes, to a lesser degree, you get Yan Gomes coming in 2016 when he made the club. And in the first round, they kept Jimenez too, but then Gomes was just the secondary catcher. And you think, well, what are the odds he's going to get into the game? And well, he did. He ended up getting into the game in Game 7. The thing that only having 2 pinch hitters on the bench that you really trust to be strategic advantages based on their platoon is it limits how aggressive you can be to do that. If you've got a 3rd guy on the bench, then you can, in the 4th inning, if in a key spot, pinch hit for your guy. But if you only got 2 of them, you got to hold them back until like the 7th or 8th.
It limits your
I don't like it.
flexibility.
I don't like it, but I think that's the way we're trending.
Yeah. I don't know.
So give me your picks again. Do you remember them? Did you write them down?
Stephen Kwan,
Yeah.
the coming of age of Tanner Bybee and Gavin Williams, the random didn't mean to hit a home run right there by Bo Naylor, Giancarlo Noel, and David Fry.
You cannot tell me that Noel ever didn't intend to hit a home run.
By the way, Giancarlo Noel says his thick legs, he said he got them from his mom, in case you were wondering. Just a random
I'm not going
factoid
to do
for you.
anything with that. All right, moving on.
The Ohtani-esque Manzardo-Fry combination. Maybe that's not a good comparison. Those guys don't steal bases. And the pitching decisions. Picking the right people.
I've got. I just circled these based on the order I had them. So Jose's got to be on one of those heaters. The bullpen must pitch at least 45% of the innings, but no more than 75%. Got to find the right balance of how they're being used. One of the supporting cast has to be hot at some point in every series. Can't fall into that just wait for the home run mentality. Still utilize that chaos coordinator aspect that they really like. And no high leverage plate appearances for Straw or Hedges. Who wins here? We all do if all of these things come to fruition.
Since you mentioned the bullpen, my favorite stat, little update. Cleveland's bullpen this season, a 2.61 ERA. The next closest team, Milwaukee, at 3.20. The difference between 1 and 2 is the same as the difference between number 2, Milwaukee, and number 12, the Cubs. Or you could say the difference between number 1, Cleveland, and number 4, the Yankees, at 360, basically a full run, is the same as the difference between the Yankees, number 4, and the Pittsburgh Pirates at 27.
Wow.
Just to give you a little context, the bullpen hasn't been good, hasn't been great. It's been unfathomably, consistently, historically good. I mean, it's nuts. So yeah,
I would also love to
lean
see
on it
that.
75% if you have to.
I would love to see, what we say, the top 4 for every team.
Mm-hmm.
I would also love to see this stat of every team's top 4. Because then you could eliminate anybody saying, well, the last few guys in our bullpen really killed those numbers for us. Well, that's true for the Guardians, too. But also some of the last guys in the bullpen also have some strong statistics.
Yeah.
Wild year.
And, Eric Sabrowski was sitting at AAA all year. He said, yeah, I was just wondering, like, how am I ever going to get up there? And then once he did, he's like, well, I better be perfect. They do have a chance, by the way. They currently rank 6th in terms of bullpen ERA in the wild card era, so like the last 30 years. They do have a chance. They're right behind the Braves. Are at 2002 Braves are at 260. The 2014 Mariners are at 259. So they could sneak past those teams. The 2013 Royals, which was like the first iteration of that, Greg Holland, Calvin Herrera, I think Luke Hochevar was really good that year. They were at 255. So
Wade Davis.
maybe they can climb past that Royals team, and then they'd rank 3rd in the last 30 years. But either way, I mean, they're 6th and right behind 5th and 4th.
I felt like that loss by the Astros on Sunday was pretty critical to just making this last week feel a lot less chaotic. Now, that bye has not been clinched yet, but 3.5 going into Monday compared to 4.5 going into Monday, that feels like a big difference. I know big series for both teams in the Astros position, want to clinch their own spot in the division, still trying to chase Cleveland, and they're playing Seattle. So Houston, Seattle, that's big this week. We'll keep an eye on that. And we said several weeks ago, what if that series against Houston ends up meaning something? It still could. It still very well could. And the unfortunate part about doing something like that is that's also the team that you could face in that next round in the DS. And so you risk I don't want to give too much away. I don't want to put my best pitchers against them so that they see them a ton a week before we'd have to see them again. It's a tough spot. But getting that bye is obviously the most critical thing. And I think watching them fumble away that game against the Los Angeles Angels of all teams really made this last week feel a lot less stressful for me.
Yeah, I mean, I if they win both against the Reds, the managerless Reds, they clinch the bye.
Oof, yeah.
You just want to go into that
Another
Houston
party.
series with being able to breathe, pitch who you want when you want, just get work in. Let Jose try to get 40-40. It helps. The Astros are playing the Mariners, who are fighting for their lives. So, maybe the Mariners get one in that series, and then it's even easier. Then you just need one against the Reds. So we'll see. It's always a weird time of season when you've clinched. We've seen this a few times in recent years with the Guardians. With like that last week, you're just kind of playing out the string. Like the games, there is something to play for here. they could clinch the first round bye as early as Tuesday, and then it's like, okay, well, you just got to play these last 4 games. There's an off day today. There's an off day Thursday. There's going to be 5 off days next week, most likely. So it's just trying to keep yourself engaged and like feeling how you want to feel, and not get rusty. And it's odd. It's strange. And then we can just over and over and over again talk about the playoff roster and what it should be and what it will be and what it could be and how Miles Straw is going to bat in the bottom of the 12th inning with the game on the line in Game 7 in the World Series, while I'll be in a hospital room and, there will be a 3-minute lag on the TV and I'll have no idea what happens and you'll be texting me and then we'll record a podcast.
Good. For the amount of times you've ruined something that's going to happen. Still yell at you every time you drop the Jose helmet counter. And I'm like, oh, what did Jose do? Oh, it's just a double play and he ran really hard. Thanks, Zach.
Well, I mean, usually when that happens,
I thought it was going to be a double into the corner.
you can rule out a home run. Because I don't think that's happened yet.
I mean, Naylor's swinging and his helmet flies off every time.
That is
so
true.
Who's to say that Jose's helmet couldn't fly off on a
Naylor's
swing?
helmet never leaves the batter's box.
That would also be me in a similar situation, except I just walk back to the dugout after taking another strikeout. Who wants this last spot in the wild card? How about the Tigers? Now the Tigers are the second wild card, not the third. The Twins have fallen out of it, courtesy of just getting destroyed against the Red Sox in their doubleheader. The Royals, what's going on with the Royals, who've lost 7 in a row? This is their second stretch in recent memory of, what did they lose, 6 or 7 the last time? And they're still hanging on to the last wild card spot. We mentioned the Mariners. They're 2 games back, 1 game back of the Twins. What chaos awaits in the final week. I love it. Maybe not for the reasons why I should love it, because everyone's great, but I still love it nonetheless.
Just love that the AL Central is the main character. And not even because the team who tied the record and will soon break it for the most losses in a season exists in the AL Central.
Oof. So we got the Tigers coming up against the Rays. Royals get the Nationals next. Twins are against Miami, and then of course Seattle and Houston matching up. Any predictions for who's gonna seize those last 2 spots?
Who cares? It's all about the Ohio Cup.
Nice way to get out of it, sir. We'll see you later this week at Patreon. Enjoy.